I'm going to start off with this one. I'm going to start off with Gatekeeper because they reported first. So let's go look at some of these numbers. A couple things here. Revenue growth for the year so far for 6 months, because they've reported now Q1 and Q2, right? Revenue is up 35%. Their expenses are up 33%. So, I mean, revenue is beating the expenses. That's why we're seeing a little bit of improvement on the bottom line. Maybe a nice for this to be a little bit higher or this to be a little bit lower, but that's what's happening. And because of all this, operating income up 153% year over year. So these are still fantastic numbers. And if you look at their earnings per share, both basic and diluted, doubled. Last year, 2023, 2 cents per share. Right now, they're sitting at 4 cents per share for the 6 months for Gatekeeper Systems. So I don't know about you, but that looks pretty darn good to me. Trade and other receivables. This is interesting to mention. So their cash is up a little bit. That's great. They've spent some money on some stuff we'll talk about here in a second. Their trade and other receivables up from 5 million to 8.5 million. Trade and other payables, you'll notice the trade and receivables went up from 5 million to 8.6 million basically. Payables only went up from 1.6 million to 2.1 million. So again, we're seeing good trends here. Gatekeeper Systems, total assets going from 19.6 million to 22.9 million. So assets are going up by over 3 million. And if you look at their total liabilities, still going down. Even though payables is up a little bit, everything else is a little bit lower. So again, the numbers don't look too bad. It doesn't really scream down 7.8% to me. Now, don't forget 2023 revenue was what, 27.8 million, 27.7 million, maybe. I forget which one, somewhere in there. Right now, they're on track, basically for about $40 million for 2024. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but I mean, they put in 2 quarters now of just about 10 million, just off 10 million. So roughly, if they get a couple good quarters of growth here, 10 million, that's going to be about 43% growth in 2024. Now, again, I'm not saying they're going to do that, but that's kind of roughly where they're on track now in the past 6 months. One of the things that people are worried about, though, is that expenses are up. So if you remember, Gatekeeper Systems promoted and hired. So their general and administrative is up, right? This is up, what, $400,000. They hired a new VP. They hired some marketing staff. Selling and marketing is also up as they go to more trade shows. They're trying to get more contracts. COVID is over. They could travel. They could market themselves. They've hired more people for that. They've got more work on the go. They need more people. So yeah, some of their operating expenses are up, as well as research and development is up 120,000 roughly. So their expenses are up here. What is that, right? A little bit, right? 2.4 million to 3.3 million, 900,000 in a little bit. I'm not too worried about that. We know why this happened. We kind of knew this was coming. Yes, expenses are up a little bit compared to previous quarters. When we get down here to comprehensive income, again, people concerned. I hate these quarter over quarter comparisons because, total comprehensive income was down from the Q2 in 2023, which was a stunning 1.8 million. But this time, because of these expenses, extra expenses of marketing and people, total comprehensive income was only 1.5 million. However, if you look at the full year, the full 6 months, because Gatekeeper is a little bit lumpy with their revenue, they're also a little bit lumpy with their earnings, their profits. And if you look at total comprehensive income for the 6 months, both quarters combined, from 1.7 million to 3.6 million, right? Whew, that's not too bad. That's over double. So interesting to me. Again, the numbers don't look too bad. I mean, expenses are up a little bit. One thing I think people are not giving them credit for here, I've highlighted, these are the quarters that they've had, 9 million or more on, right? They used to get one of those quarters and then a break, one of those quarters and a break, one of those quarters and then a couple quarters without a break. This is the first time that they've put 2 quarters in a row with over 9 million of revenue, right? So congratulations there, as well as you notice what's trending up. Again, they had once here 49% and then it dropped. And then we start to see this more consistent 47% margins, 50%, 48, 49, 52% margins this quarter. Improvement on their margins as well. You can see them going from basically flat here, 0, 0. Every once in a while, we get 2 cents income per share, earnings per share, sorry. They kind of, even at the start of the end of last year, they're 1 cent per share. Now they're up to 2 cents per share, 2 quarters in a row. So consistent improvement from Gatekeeper Systems again. What else we got? Cash flows. This was interesting. I don't know where this came from. They spent $1 million on property, plant, and equipment. No idea what that is. Somebody feel free to let me know in the comments. If you think you know, I couldn't think of it, what it could possibly be today. And as well as cash positive, right? Increasing cash on the quarter, 261,000. So even though they spent a little bit extra here, it went from basically nothing last year on property, plant, and equipment. They spent an extra $1 million. They still went from being down 1.4 million in cash last year to being up 261,000. There's a lot of things here that could have driven that cash a little bit higher, but they didn't because they had some of those expenditures, right? So still not bad. Now they announced a contract just before this earnings with Cascades East Transit. Not a very big one, but it's definitely a little bit unique. It was $645,000 Canadian. All these numbers I'm working with are Canadian because Gatekeeper reports in Canadian. Cascades East Transit is a fixed bus provider. So this is another busing contractor. I don't know where all they are. I don't know how big they are, but this is one location here, and this is what Gatekeeper is working with. Now, I spoke previously about 40 million for, they're kind of on track right now for 40 million for the year. I don't think that happens. One of the reasons is that so far in the past 6 months, 35% revenue growth, right? So revenue was the, highest quarterly. Oh yeah, see, it is the highest. 9.8 million, 9,858 was the highest quarterly revenue in the company's history, compares to 9.6 the prior year. I think one previous quarter they had something like 9,838 or something. They beat it out by like 20,000, but it's still record revenue, right? Yeah, somebody's saying that property, plant, and equipment could be for their data center. That could be. That's a great idea. I wonder if that's what that money is for. That's thank you. I forgot about that. That's a good potential. Revenue top line growth 35%. So if we take that out, in 2023 they had 27.8 million total revenue. If we add in 35% growth, then for 2024 we could be looking at 37.5 million total revenue. So we're on track for 40. I don't really think Gatekeeper gets to 40. Now keep in mind, I believe in previous interviews, I think Mr. Diamond there has said something like 35 million revenue for the year is kind of what they're targeting. So right now they're on track somewhere between 40 and 37.5. So I would suggest they're kind of ahead of their target. If their target is 35 million, right now they're on track for somewhere between 37.5 and 40 million for the year. So again, unfortunately, it's not the 101% revenue growth. That they got, that 101% revenue growth last quarter. Of course, that's absolutely not sustainable. This company is looking at 35%. So what we're looking at to continue that 35% growth, if we're targeting that 35% and 37.5 million for the year, Q3 in 2023 was 5.9 million, really low quarter. So to get that 35%, they need around 7.9 million in Q3 of 2024. Now, Q4 of 2023 was 7.3 million. So in Q4 of this year, they need 9.8 million. So if Gatekeeper is going to get that 35%, 37.5 million, their next quarter has to probably be somewhere around the 7.9 million mark. And their Q4 is going to have to be another kind of 9.8 million quarter for revenue. So I don't know if that's possible. Again, if they miss it a little bit, then we're back to that $35 million in revenue that I think Gatekeeper was talking about. And that would still be, probably somewhere around 30% growth, right? So interesting for me that there's still good growth here, as well as their margins, right? We have to give them credit. 52 and 50% respectively, improved from 47% and 42% last year. So, kind of final answer. That's enough information for now. It's just a quarterly earnings. It's not an end of the year earnings. What am I giving Gatekeeper Systems from a star rating of 0 to 5 stars? First off, let's look at some of the negative things, some of the red flags. Few things. I think there's going to be a lot of these. I think there's going to be a lot of drama queens this quarter. We've already seen that kind of down 7.8% or whatever. That one quarter they had 101% growth. I think that created some unrealistic expectations, right? And everybody starts pumping the stock. It's going to the moon, 100% growth. This is going to last forever. This is the greatest company in the world. And when you kind of start coming back to those, 30, 35%, that disappoints people. The money mark video also drove the share price up, right? As well as created maybe some unrealistic expectations where people were thinking that this company was absolutely going to the moon. It's still doing very well, but it's doing very well at their 30 to 35% growth. Q3 and Q4 could scare some people off and add to this drama queen type concept where, if next quarter, if they do get that $7.9 million of revenue, which is still going to be 35% growth, people are going to look at that and say, this company is dead, it's dying, growth is over, sell, it's the worst company on earth because it's gone from 9.8 to 7.3. But at the end of the day, that's still quarter over quarter 35% growth. And at the end of the year, that's kind of what people are targeting. But it's lumpy. And this creates this opportunities for people to pump up the stock when they have quarters that are, maybe a little bit above their normal, and to basically rag on them and dump them when they have quarters that are a little bit lower than normal. Overall, I'd say this Q2 is still pretty good numbers, right? So, I tell people sometimes I was covering, Kraken Robotics when they were bouncing around between $3 million of revenue per quarter and 12. I was covering Gatekeeper Systems. They were bouncing around between 2 million per revenue and 6. With these lumpy revenue type stocks that are lumpy throughout the year, sometimes you need to zoom out. You need to look at the big picture of what, you're looking at this company, not the minute by minute, month by month, or even quarter to quarter progress of the shares. You want to look at the progress of the company. And what I'm seeing here, even conservatively still with Gatekeeper Systems, is it's still looking like they're going to be a 25% or plus top line growth company. Right now, they've actually got 35% growth. So even if their Q3 and Q4 is down significantly, they're still looking at 25% top line growth for the year. They're going to be looking at probably 30% plus bottom line growth for the year, and that's due to their expanding margins going from the 40s to the 50s. So you add in this top line growth with better margins, you're going to get better bottom line growth. Still a good share structure at 92 million shares. And I don't believe there's much dilution or anything. They're cash positive. So, if they do have a big dilution event, it's probably to either grow the company or to acquire some other company, right? There's no real other reason with the cash that they have. They're going to be full year profitable with cash flow. So that's important, right? At the end of the day, when I add those two things up, at least for Q2, and I know Q3 and Q4 numbers could be a little bit lower, but at least for Q4, I'm still keeping it at 4 stars for Kraken or for Gatekeeper Systems. You need to be willing to look at the year over year and look at the company and not panic on that quarter over quarter. And of course, we know, like my opinion here, this channel covered Gatekeeper Systems, drove up the share price quite a bit. I need more pictures like this where, I look really cool, and then I do this like art AI type drawing of me. I think that's different from what I usually do on my channel. And I typically don't talk share price, but when larger channels are talking about these smaller kind of low volume stocks, it creates spikes in their share price, right? So I would suggest the company is moving up somewhat, progressively as far as improvement quarter over quarter and year over year. But overall, the share price is all over the place, right? This in here is when I was talking about Gatekeeper Systems, and they were sitting at 20 cents, 30 cents, right? Thinking, the company's up here. The value of the company is probably up here somewhere, and share price is way down here. But I think recently what we've seen is the company is growing. There's no denying that. But we also have seen these spikes of excitement that are, maybe not quite justified yet. at least until we get another large contract. Basically, Gatekeeper Systems is going to grow through these smaller contracts. However, if they get a large contract, if they get another SEPTA, another city signed up, we are going to get more of these spikes too. Excitement will go through the roof. There's now a lot more shareholders looking at Gatekeeper Systems. So that's great. And congratulations.